Hello, Team Easy Daters, Get Love Now Summit. Yes, finally, we've got Cindy Olin. Cindy, say hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled. This is going to be awesome.
Yes, Cindy, I've been dying for this interview. I've spoken when you've interviewed me multiple times, and I've never gotten to interview you. And so this is like the highlight of my life right here, getting to interview Cindy Olin finally after months. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me again. It's my pleasure. I'm honored.
And I'm so excited because you have a topic that no one else has. We are talking about emotional triggers. And you had to explain to me what that was yesterday when we talked. So I'm so excited to learn more. What is an emotional trigger?
Yeah, it's a good question. Emotional triggers, what they are things that, I usually say they start in your stomach. It's something that you feel uncomfortable or uneasy about, or it lands with you. It really bothers you when someone says something, does something, or maybe doesn't do something. So there's, and I'm talking about this in the context of dating and relationships. So we can be triggered by our family members. In fact, our family members probably trigger us the most. But in the context of dating and relationships, we all get emotionally triggered. And we all, when you understand what's underneath the trigger, it's much easier to release it and have compassion for yourself, have compassion for the situation and what's happening, and know how to proceed moving forward. I don't know if any of you ladies have been in a situation where something happens or doesn't happen. Let's just say, for example, you've been dating someone for a while and he doesn't call you for a day or two. And all of a sudden your mind starts to wander. Like, is he dating someone else? Is he okay? Why isn't he calling me? Did he lose interest, right? So all of these things, stories that are created in our minds, make for an emotional trigger. And then we can get upset, like we can get ourselves really worked up, like, what a jerk, I can't believe he hasn't called me, I can't, like, who does he think he is, or whatever the story is, instead of really knowing how to come to a place of peace around that and proceeding with compassion for yourself, for the other person, and seeking to understand rather than reacting. So that's a long explanation to your question.
That was a great explanation. I loved it. I want to stay on something specific on the emotional triggers because I think it's so important. I have so many clients and so many people emailing me about, like, a guy just stopped texting, and clearly that's an emotional trigger. But where could these things have come from? Like, what is causing women to not be happy when they don't get the text?
Yeah. So, I mean, if a guy all of a sudden stops calling or stops texting, right, it can, what it does is it's like a stab at the heart. It triggers rejection. It triggers in a lot of women's mind, what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? Why did he stop messaging me? So I can give, if you'd like, I can help you ladies to turn this around so that you're feeling empowered rather than disempowered and victimized from these things. Would you be interested in hearing about that?
Yes, I am. Can we go to that in 1 second?
Yeah.
Let's do that second. First thing I want to do is, like, is there something from their childhood, or what is the cause of it?
Okay, let me go deeper.
Yeah.
Thanks for leading into that.
You're welcome.
So, a lot of times when things like that happen, right? Like a guy doesn't call you, a guy stops calling randomly or stops texting you. It comes from our family of origin. So from the ages of 0 to about 7 years old, some researchers say 5, is how we learn how we show up in relationships, and the subtle subconscious things that we don't know really how to deal with as a child are cropping up. So there might be some abandonment in there. There might be some not feeling seen or heard or fully taken care of. And it's not, and I want to clarify, it's not because most of the time our parents don't want to. It's because they're doing the best that they can with the tools that they have. And they're passing on to you what was passed on to them. So oftentimes you start to see, behaviors in parents shift at certain ages. So we don't need to dig too deep around that piece, but understand that our emotional triggers do come from our family of origin. So even trauma points in our life. So even beyond the age of 7, maybe you were bullied in middle school. Maybe one of your brothers or sisters told everyone in the school not to talk to you, and they followed suit. So you felt lost and abandoned and not heard and understood. That can have a huge lasting effect, because that's traumatic as a child, right? To have something like that happen to you, or, not feeling like, for me, when I was growing up, I didn't really feel safe to share things that were going on for me in school. I didn't feel like I could communicate freely with my parents based on the way that they interacted with me. So there was a underlying thought process for me under my impression that I was to be seen and not heard. Now, had I had a brother or sister, their experience might have been different. That was me and what I received from the way my parents showed up, right? So going back to if a guy doesn't text or something like that, think about it like this. What if you have a new girlfriend and you guys are planning on going for a hike that weekend, and you're super excited to get to know each other because you seem to have a lot in common, and she doesn't text you? Is that the end of the world? Or do you think in your mind, oh, something must have come up? I mean, you might think in the flash in your mind, I hope everything's okay. But you trust, based on the pattern that's gone on over the past few weeks or month, that she's going to call you or text you and say, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. My grandfather was in the hospital. We had to go there this weekend. I really was looking forward to our hike. Can we do it next week? Right? So instead of going into the thought process of, what a jerk, oh my goodness, why is he doing this to me? Look at, okay, so do I know of anything in his life that may have changed? Men are very single focused, and if they got extraordinarily busy at work, they're not going to be focused on texting you. They, who knows, something could have came up. Or maybe they made a decision that this isn't the right fit for them right now. And trust in that, right? So if you have an attitude of, okay, I trust that God, the universe, is removing something from my pathway to make room for the right connection, all right, bless him, and move forward. And that helps you to stand in your power and have a good attitude about this. Because what happens is, if you keep thinking about this guy that didn't text you or didn't call you back, then one, you're giving away all your power, and you're not actually creating space in your life to welcome somebody else in that could be the man of your dreams or much better suited for you. These things happen. I've been there. It sucks, right? I'm not saying that it's fun, but if you can flip that around instead of having the tapes play in your head of men are jerks, they don't want to commit, all those things, right? And men can say that about some women too. So it's looking at it from a different standpoint, a standpoint of abundance rather than lack. And maybe starting to look at the patterns in your life, the patterns in your relationships. Is there a common thread there? Typically there is. And if you start to understand what that is, and sometimes self-sabotage comes in when you're triggered enough. When a woman's triggered and she feels like, I'm getting too close to him and he could hurt me. Maybe she does something inadvertently to sabotage that. Now, if that's something you've done, don't beat yourself up for it. Let's look at why. Why are you doing that? And what can be shifted? I mean, this is hard to do alone. It's hard to do without guidance, without support. And knowing that you are safe. So it's really about, okay, so how can I calm my mind down and make a decision that's not based out of emotion? So the number one thing I recommend around that, ladies, is not to have a conversation when you're feeling super charged up and emotional. Because one, you could say something that you really don't mean, and which may or may not have anything to do with that person. And then all of a sudden you're projecting and the guy's like, whoa, wait a second. It's like you're really charged and he simply didn't call you for a couple of days because he was on a business trip and meetings all day until 10 o'clock at night. And all he wanted to do was go to bed. And then he called you right when he got off the plane. And then all of a sudden there's an unhinging that happens, right? So I'm using that as a loose example, but I hope that's helpful.
That was really helpful. And I feel like that was like a spot on example because I think, at least as a man, I've certainly had that happen in the past. So it felt very real for me. And when that woman did freak out on me, yeah, I was like, whoa, where is this coming from? I didn't even know I did anything wrong. I was just at work for 2 days. Yeah. And so, yeah, as a man, I'm like, what? Yeah. Anyway, Cindy, I have a favor. Can we talk about you? Do you mind?
Yeah.
Yes. We're going to talk about Cindy. All right. I was super interested in your story. About 5 minutes ago, you were telling us about how, oh God, what were you saying? How you, as a child, you felt like you were seen but not heard. And so I have a feeling a lot of women have also felt that way. So when that happened, how did that affect your relationships as an adult?
Hot mess.
So what would happen?
Yeah, let me tell you about that. So I'll tell you guys the Reader's Digest version. And it's something that I'm still acutely aware of. So we attract partners in our life that actually feel comfortable to us. So someone that feels familiar. Maybe you've been in a relationship where you feel like, oh, that person kind of reminds me a little bit of my mom or my dad, or, there's certain similarities there. Or there's a similar feeling. Like I felt like I was walking on eggshells quite a bit. My parents are both very lovely people. My mother was a little more challenging than my father. So it was, when I felt that way, I felt really disempowered in relationships. So what I did is I sought to escape in my life. And let me explain what that looked like. I read everything I could get my hands on. So from the time I was maybe 6 years old, I was reading like novels and like, I read all the time. And then I created fantasies or I watched movies. I'm not kidding. And I would love like, romantic movies. And I would think that was the way love was or should be. So then let's fast forward. I got to a certain point in time where I started dating, and then I would develop these crushes on boys based on what I thought they should be, or, you know, and it's a very emotionally immature outlook. And that was the way that I operated. And so, you know, I would put them on a pedestal, and inevitably I would be disappointed. And then fast forward a little bit further, then I would go out on dates and look super cute and, you know, be all ready. And then I would literally have guys running for the hills for me. And do you want to know why?
Yes. Yes.
It was because I wasn't very present with the date. I would be sitting there thinking, oh, wow, he's really cute. We have chemistry. I think we're having a good time. I can imagine us getting married and having 2.5 kids, the white picket fence, dog, everything, right? And men, and I know that you've probably experienced something similar, Mike, they pick up on that. And, you know, the guy's like, cute girl, smells good, lights are on, no one's home. And it doesn't matter how cute you are if you engage with them. And so I literally was like, all right, you know, I had a few coming to Jesus moments at a young age. I looked in the mirror and I was like, all right, so the common denominator here is me. So I joke around that I used to wear man repellent, because I did. I mean, literally guys would be like, and they might have sensed that I would go crazy town at a certain point, which I did do a few times. But anyways, that was a long time ago. At least I'm totally transparent.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So fast forward, then I really made it a point to study this area, learn how to understand men. Ironically, out of college, I started working for a relationship development center where I was working with Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus philosophies and teaching women how to understand men and create amazing relationships. And I continued on because I wasn't done. I mean, I've spent well over $150,000 on my education around this. I'm not saying every woman needs to do that. Clearly, I'm passionate about my work. And, you know, I studied under Dr. Pat Allen, Allison Armstrong. Like, there's, you know, many people that have been known in our field that I've studied under, and I really sought to figure out, you know, like, let me go visit Mars and then come back to you ladies and help you really understand them on a different level. And what it did for me was gave me the tools to understand where those emotional triggers come from too, and be able to share vulnerably without, you know, coming up with a story in my head, therefore coming unhinged on someone that doesn't deserve that. We're all human, and men, just as much as women, want to be around someone that can communicate with them and they feel connected to. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. All right. So you're going on these dates and you're not present in them. And then you decided, or you got all this education and you're like, all right, it's game time. I got to like be focused on these dates. So for the everyday woman watching, like what how do you go from point A to point B and become this like irresistible woman that everyone is going to have a great time on a date with?
Yeah. So taking some of the things that I spoke without going into the backstory, right? So number one, be present and be you. Also, be the happiest version of yourself. Like, be in gratitude. Gosh, I'm grateful that I'm going to go meet someone new tonight. I'm excited without attachment. You're not thinking, this could be my husband. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But if you go into it like, gosh, I'm going to go have fun, I'm going to meet someone new, maybe learn something new, and have a great attitude, that is irresistible. Men love a woman with a great attitude, someone that's present, and also someone that sets healthy boundaries for themselves. So the old Cindy was really loose on her boundaries. So what it did was it sent out mixed messages into the universe, and not to mention, men became uncertain about me. Even if I got a guy interested, he was uncertain about me because I wasn't fully treating myself high value or staying in my power, right? So knowing what your values are and setting boundaries around that, and not in a bitchy way, but in a way of, oh, hey, actually, I'm not comfortable with that. Hope you can respect that. Or this is how I feel about that. And don't have fear that that person's going to walk away. If he's a high value man, he's going to, like, his ears are going to perk up. He's going to be like, oh, wow, hello. She's setting a boundary. She doesn't, make out in a bar with me on the second date for an hour, right? She doesn't, she has a life outside of her dating life and bringing in her husband. So, knowing that, or let me give you an example around setting a boundary. So if you're talking and you're like, oh yeah, how's the dating going? Great. What are you looking for? And the guy's like, I'm looking to meet new friends and just have some fun. I'm newly divorced or whatever. And let's say that's not in alignment with you. Let's say you're looking to meet Mr. Right. You're looking to meet the right person to, partner up with. It doesn't matter how cute he is. If he's not in the same place as you, it's going to be like putting a square peg in a round hole. So you get to say something like, oh gosh, I totally understand that, respect where you're at. I'm in a different place. I'm actually looking to meet, to date, to meet the right person that, eventually we get married and maybe have a family or whatever's right for you, right? And what that will do is that guy, it'll make him sit up to attention. Actually, oh boy, she knows what she wants. And he may even be a little bit more attracted to you. You might find him calling you, but do not move forward. Like, remember, you're not going to change his mind by setting a boundary. So setting a boundary with the things that are comfortable for you, knowing what your values are, and if someone's not aligned, then they're not going to be a fit. So clarity, setting boundaries, knowing who you are, having a full life outside of your dating life is really important and really attractive too.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Cindy, can I tell a quick story around boundaries that I've never told before?
I want to hear it.
Yes. And you've never heard the story either. So, like the typical man, a few years ago, before I met Kelly, well, actually, this is the story of Kelly. The first time I met her, I was trying to take her back to my place for sex. And yes, I'm going to put the cards on the table. I was going for it. First time I met her. Anyway, she's like, no, I don't have sex on the first date. Like, nice try. Let's go back to our date. And so she had her boundary that sex was not happening. And all that did was made me respect her more, because if she would have just went home, I'm sure we would have had sex and I never would have called her again. Quite frankly, because I didn't know her personality that well yet. So anyway, we didn't have sex. I walked her to her car, whatever, and she went on her way. And then, but I was like, all right, her personality is pretty good. I want to get to know her better. Second date, I'm still like, I'm a man. I like sex. I want to have sex. I tried to have sex. She still said, no way. And she got me back on track to keep talking, keep getting to know each other. And I'm like, all right, I'm starting to like this girl. Then by third date, I was smitten. I really, really liked her. And at that point, I didn't care how long it took to have sex. Like, I really liked her. If she would have made me wait 2 or 3 months or whatever it was, I didn't care. I knew that she was the right one for me, and I was going to pursue her to the end of the earth, because that's what I wanted to do at that point. I knew she was right for me. And I guarantee you, if she would have let me have sex early, I would have been like, all right, I'm not going to invest the time to get to know you. You don't value yourself as a high value person where you want to get to know me as well before you give your whole body to me. So beautiful, beautiful. And ladies, you're not being naggy when you set a boundary. Like, so many women say that to me, like, oh, I don't want to be naggy. I don't want to be negative. You're not. You're being sexy and you're being confident. And men are going to gravitate towards that because you are like a high value, awesome woman.
Right. And
what do you think, Cindy?
And I want to say something about what you just shared. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And, so first of all, Mike's a high value guy. He's still thinking on the first date, he meets this girl, she's gorgeous, and he's like, all right, I'm thinking sex, let's bring her back to my place. And she says no, and he's like, wah, wah. Okay, let's continue to get to know each other. Now, ladies, you could take that one way or another. You could get super turned off if the guy's trying to advance on you, or you could shift it and say, look, I don't do that. If that's what you're looking for, you're barking up the wrong tree here. But hey, I'd love to continue our date because I'm really enjoying getting to know you. So Mike's redirected. Second date, it happens again. He's redirected. By the third date, he's like, who cares? She can make me wait. She's an amazing girl, and I can't wait to continue to get to know her. Sometimes men need to be redirected a bit, and it's natural for them to feel attracted to you. So don't take that the wrong way, like that's all he's looking for. It's natural for him to be interested in that piece. So I wanted to share that really quick because sometimes women could go, what? And thanks.
Yes. Thank you for saving me. I didn't want everyone to hate me. And, by the third date, like, obviously, yes, I like sex, but I could care less. Like, she was so interesting. I was enjoying talking to her and the prospect of what we could have together way more than what sex was going to bring. Because I was like a kid in a candy store. I was like so ecstatic. Like, oh my God, I've just dated plenty of women. And now I'm finally with a woman that, like, we've got all our values aligned. We want all the same things. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing. Like, this doesn't happen that often where everything's lining up. And I was just like, yes, finally, I found one that is right for me. And that was so exciting. And thank God she was intelligent enough to redirect me away from the whole sexual energy and get me focused on, let's get to know each other and see if everything aligns.
Right. Because that can be trouble. I mean, a lot of people will, lead with sex, and sometimes that can sabotage what could be a great relationship if two people don't actually take the time to figure out if they're aligned.
Yes. Cindy, let's circle back around. Final question.
Yeah.
Triggers. You did a great job of explaining how triggers work. Now, you've got a trigger, an emotional trigger that's just driving you crazy, and you're with a guy, and maybe you're in a relationship at this point.
Yeah.
How can the trigger bring you guys really, really close together?
Such a great question. It's all about communication. So let's say you're massively triggered about something. Let's say you're in a relationship, and you and your guy go out every Friday night, and he's classically like, it's usually the other way around, but he's classically like 45 minutes to an hour behind. And maybe you've had a really long day too, and you like to get to bed early because you like to get up in the morning and do yoga or whatever's important to you, right? And you're triggered by it. You start to feel like, is he not respecting my time? There's stories that are created, right? So here's a couple. Do you mind if I work something out with everyone?
Do it. Yes.
And then help you guys to communicate around it. So look at the fact. Okay, we're going to call him Bob. So the fact is, your guy, Bob, is classically late every Friday. Okay? And maybe you spend the rest of the weekend together and he's not late. And so we look at the fact, right? Bob is late. Let's look at what else. Look at the story that you might create around that. Next. Story is he doesn't respect my time, or the fact that I really want to get up early in the morning, or that I like to eat earlier, or whatever, right? Or a story could be, maybe he's talking to another woman, because that can happen, right? So those are the stories. Those are not facts. So let's go underneath that. What can we rely upon with Bob? What do we know about Bob? He always shows up. Bob, without fail, always shows up. It's like he's sliding into home plate and he's running and he's late, okay? So what can we do moving forward to set things up for success, right? So my mind might start to wander, well, it sounds like Bob really wants to spend time with you. It sounds like he is doing the best that he can. So when Bob shows up to your house, you get to say, hey, how's everything? How's your day? And listen to how his day was. Gosh, my boss pulled me into a last minute meeting. It lasted blah, 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 right? So you get to sit down and say, Bob, and you start with what you're grateful for. I'm so happy that you always make the effort to come over, and we go on a date on Friday nights, and I'm very aware that you've had a stressful week, or Fridays seem to be really crazy for you. And so you say that, and Bob's kind of like, yeah, right, okay. And then you go, and it would, whatever's right for you. And understanding that perhaps we can move our dates on Friday to 8 o'clock at night, or not put a lot of pressure to go on the date and do something more relaxing, because it always makes me so happy to get up and do yoga feeling refreshed in the morning. And I love it when you join me. What do you think? So what that does is it creates a dialogue that is not assuming anything negative. And it's also looking at the situation, right? It's looking at, clearly he's got a demanding career and Fridays seem to be really crazy for him. What if the pressure was taken off? Or what if I was happy to come to you on Fridays and we go to the yoga class by your place? I mean, who knows? I'm just pontificating. But what that does is a man, and you can let me know what you think of that, is going to be like, oh, she gets it. She understands, right? And it's going to make him feel closer to you by having the communication rather than you not saying anything. And then eventually one day something else happens and then it's like your head pops off because of all the steam that you've had built up from him being late every Friday night for the past 3 months, right? It's like if you had an employee working for you and you knew what their situation was, you want to set them up for success, right? I do this with my clients. I know Mike does too. Okay, let's set you up for success. How's this going to work for you? So anyway.
Yes.
That's an example.
Cindy, that was the gold nugget. That was the piece of advice that everybody needed, that I needed, that, oh my God, finally, that was it. Everyone rewind the video, watch that segment again. That is how you handle a man, especially after an emotional trigger. Oh, I love that advice. That was spot on. Cindy, you nailed it. Woo! Okay, Cindy, I love that piece of advice. I can't get over it. That was so good. All right. I know you have a free gift for everybody. So everyone go down there, get your hands on the free gift. Cindy, what are you giving away?
I'm giving away a few different things, okay? Because I'm feeling really generous today. So I've got an ebook that I wrote called Take Time for Your Love Life. And it's really all about that, taking time for your love life, whether you're single or in a relationship, and the things that you can do to create abundance in this area of your life. I also have another ebook that I love to throw in called How to Meet Your Soulmate in 30 Days or Less. Use these strategies. It does work. It's time tested and proven. And if for some reason you don't meet your soulmate in 30 days or less, keep up with doing these steps in this book. He will come very quickly because you're intentional behind it. The third and not quite final thing. Third thing I have is I have a manuscript around love mastery. So understanding love, understanding men, women, and relationships, how they show up, and there's an FAQ in the back for most commonly asked questions that women have. So almost anything that you can imagine is in this book. So it's awesome. And then I realized that everyone has a unique situation when it comes to their dating and their love life. And if you have something on your heart and your mind and you need some support, I'm happy to hop on the phone with you for a complimentary 30-minute love breakthrough call and give you the support and outline your next best steps to creating the type of relationship that you deeply desire. That's it.
Whoa, what do you mean that's it? That's a lot. Holy guacamole. Cindy is going for it. She's trying to win the prize of best free gift, and she's definitely up there in the running with all the summit people. Oh my God, that's a good gift. Woo, that's like 4 gifts.
Yeah.
Woo, Cindy, you are so generous.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. I love this interview. It was a blast. Every time I get to talk to you, I love it. Cindy, that was amazing. Everyone get the free gift. And we will see you next time on the Get Love Now Summit. Cindy, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.